Good evening, students, parents, guardians, educators, and community members. We're thrilled to have you join us for the Charting the Course to Equity second annual Back to School Town Hall. Schools We Deserve, equitable education for students of color in the era of COVID-19. My name is Laura McGowan-Robinson. I am the founder and CEO of Diversity and Leadership Institute. I'm also a proud member of the Charting the Course to Equity Coalition. The Charting the Course to Equity Coalition, established and facilitated by Diversity and Leadership Institute, is a diverse and powerful network of local and national organizations with a California presence that believe school leaders, racial diversity, and culturally responsive leadership skills are critical levers in creating successful schools. The function of the coalition is to support and advance the mission of DLI through development of key initiatives carried out by four major objectives. 1, contribute to and highlight research on the topic of racially diverse leadership in California. 2, identify and amplify exemplary Black and Brown educators who've demonstrated success in closing the equity gap for students of color. 3, move from theory to action by seeking partnerships across the state to enhance existing educational leadership programs in preparing, supporting, and retaining K-12 school leaders of color. 4, to engage in collective advocacy to affect the legislation and policies that impact Black and Brown students and educators. To get us started, I'd like to do a roll call of our partners. Partners, feel free to put your name in the chat and let us know you're here. The Charting the Course to Equity Coalition partners include, of course, Diversity and Leadership Institute, Loyola Marymount University School of Education, ACSA, also known as the Association of California School Administrators, the United Negro College Fund, Innovate Public Schools, CCSA, also known as California Charter Schools Association, Teach for America Los Angeles, National Charter Collaborative, Education Board Partners, EdLock, also known as Education Leaders of Color, Energy Converters, Center for Powerful Public Schools, and Education Trust West, along with Families in Action for Quality Schools, Oakland. Throughout the town hall, you'll learn more about the work of the coalition and how you can get involved in it. Today, we have folks joining us from all over the state on Facebook and YouTube. I invite all of you to shout your name out in your city or school or your school district. Drop that in the chat. We're going to be interacting with you and engaging with you throughout our program today. We invite you to use the hashtag DIL Coalition Town Hall throughout the event. Again, that hashtag is DIL Coalition Town Hall throughout the event. You can also tweet about the town hall at DIL_Institute. Tell your friends and family members to join the conversation right now. Send them a text. In addition to the coalition's policy and advocacy work, another major commitment is to highlight some of the great work happening in schools led by educators of color in California. In a few weeks, you will learn more about the following school leaders and their schools. And a few of them you will actually hear from today in our educator, parent, and guardian, and our other panelists who will be joining us. David Harton, he's the executive director of Aram Prep in Oakland. Jordan Goins, former principal and current director of special programs at Lancaster Unified School District. Alfonso Paz and Cesar Lopez of Apex, Los Angeles. And also Jasmine Banks, principal of Vox Collegiate in Los Angeles. Follow us on social media to learn more about these leaders in the coming weeks, their schools, and their commitment to equity. To kick us off this evening, we'll hear from a veteran educator of color. Dr. Bishop will set the table for our town hall today. She'll talk about where we've been, where we should not go back, and where we should go from here. Dr. Bishop has served as a superintendent, associate superintendent, assistant superintendent, any role that is between teacher and superintendent, you name it, she's had it in several urban school districts. She's known as a strategic turnaround administrator due to her ability to go into struggling organizations and work with staff, community members, students to improve their status and put them on a trajectory towards success. She served as an adjunct professor at several universities and as a guest lecturer at the Leadership Institute at Georgetown University, and featured speaker at the White House at an education conference focused on school discipline reform. Dr. Bishop has served as an elected president for CASA, the California Association of African American Superintendents and Administrators, and several other notable positions. Dr. Bishop is currently the co-founder and president CEO of Elite Public Schools, a public charter network that opened its first school in Vallejo, California, of August 2019. Elite is designed to eliminate the opportunity gap for all students, but particularly African American and Latinx students. Join me in welcoming Dr. Ramona Bishop.
Good day. I'm Dr. Ramona Bishop, and I am so happy to have been invited by Dr. McGowan-Robinson and the board of DLI to present to you about the state of California's educational system. As we return from this global pandemic and this shelter in place and all the things that we've done over the last year and a half to keep ourselves and our families safe. I have many, many thoughts about this. I, over the last year and a half, kept hearing how we need to return to normal. I had parents, we need to return to normal. Students, let's return to normal. Teachers, administrators, we need to return to normal. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, do we really want to return to normal? In California, are we comfortable with the achievement levels of certain groups being higher than other groups? Let me give you an example. Over the last few decades, we have had incremental growth in every single group, small growth along the way, but that opportunity gap or that achievement gap for African American and Latinx students persists. Do we really want to return to normal where the first suspension is an indicator that students are on the trajectory to a pipeline to prison and African American boys are significantly represented in this group? Do we really want to return to normal where special ed students, again, disproportionately African American male, are not achieving at the levels that they're capable of? Do we really want to return to normal where graduation rates may indicate that some groups are doing well and graduating? However, when you really drill down and look at the A through G rates, which is UCCSU required, that if a student graduates with all the A through G completed, that they can actually apply to and be accepted to CSU and UC system here in California? Do we want to return to that place where some students can go to college and some can't? I would suggest that as systems, as educators even outside of the systems, we need to be clear that what we were doing was not working and is unacceptable for some students. That individual pockets of excellence are no longer okay. That as systems, we must collaborate in ways that we've never collaborated before. That we must keep the public health officers at the table. We must keep our legislators at the table because there's millions of dollars coming into our communities. And we could very easily create plans that allow for all of our students to get what they need. If they need mental health supports, if they need nursing, we could actually fund that if we collaborate and work together on creating a system, never going back to normal, but creating a new normal, a place where all kids get what they need to be successful. And when we do that, then we eliminate these gaps once and for all. When we do that, we do not have a place where some kids had the technology to participate in distance learning and some didn't. When we do that, we do not have the place where the health disparities are so significant that African American and Latinx families are suffering from COVID-19 at rates that are much higher than other groups. When we do that, then once and for all, we can say that all of California's children are getting what they need in our schools, in our school systems, in our recreation centers, that we can actually broaden our focus and create cities where our students feel safe and supported all the time. I learned a lot from this last year and a half of time. I learned that parents can be some powerful, powerful, powerful partners if we just let them. Parents were in our classrooms giving us feedback that we had never received before. That we actually do have the funding available, that we have the capacity, if we focus, to give additional funding to our educational systems. It just shouldn't just be on an emergency basis. That we actually have the capacity to provide one-on-one computers for every child and Wi-Fi for families that are struggling to provide it for their own households. We have the capacity. And so now it is up to us to learn from what it is that we went through over the last year and a half and continue to do the things that are going to accelerate our path to a place where all of our young people are graduating with A through G requirements met and on their way to college if they wish to go, and to a career that will sustain them should they choose not to go to college. That
Apologies for the technical difficulties. We'll get back on track. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Yes, this is an opportunity to move away from what was to create the schools that Black and Brown students deserve. The goal of this town hall is to center the voices of students and families. For the next several minutes, we will hear directly from students about what they have experienced over the last 18 months and the type of public schools they envision moving forward. They will also share how parents, guardians, educators, and policymakers can contribute to that vision. We reached out to students all across the state to participate in a listening session, from the Bay Area to the Central Valley to San Diego. This dynamic group of public school students will share their vision for public schools during and post-pandemic. You will hear some of the highlights from that session. Please join me in welcoming Ariana, Chris, Prayer, Maya, and Salome. This session is moderated by Ebony Wheaton of Diversity and Leadership Institute and Jaleesa Johnson of Innovate Public Schools.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much to all of you panelists, student panelists, for attending our student listening session. We're excited to hear what you all have to say, and we're going to dive right into our agenda today. But first, how about we start with a round of very quick introductions. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much to all of you panelists, student panelists, for attending our student listening session. We're excited to hear what you all have to say, and we're going to dive right into our agenda today. But first, how about we start with a round of very quick introductions. Let's start with our moderators, and then we'll have students introduce yourselves, just your name and the region where your school is located and your grade level. All right, so my name is Ebony Wheaton, and I will serve as one of the moderators for today. Kick it over to Jaleesa.
Hello, my name is Jaleesa Johnson, and I will also serve as a moderator today.
Kick it over to Ariana.
Hi, my name is Ariana. I am a senior in the Central California area.
All right, Chris.
All right, apologies. We're having some technical difficulties with our audio. Give us just a minute to get it together. We'll be right back.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much to all of you panelists, student panelists, for attending our student listening session. We're excited to hear what you all have to say, and we're going to dive right into our agenda today. But first, how about we start with a round of very quick introductions. All right, so my name is Ebony Wheaton, and I will serve as one of the moderators for today. Kick it over to Jaleesa.
Hello, my name is Jaleesa Johnson, and I will also serve as a moderator today.
Hi, my name is Ariana. I am a senior in the Central California area.
My name is Chris, and I'm a senior in Southern California.
Hi, my name is Prayer, and I'm a senior in the Central California area.
My name is Maya, and I'm a sophomore in the Southern California. I'm Slome, and I'm a junior in Northern California.
All right, well, welcome to today's listening session. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves. We're going to start off with some quick poll questions. I want you to raise your hand if you only attended school online during the last school year, which means you did not go into the classroom or the school building at all last year. Okay, I see that's everybody except Ariana. All right, you can put your hands down. Raise your hand if you attended school online and you went into the classroom or school building. Okay, that's you, Ariana.
So what did you all like most about online distance learning?
I'll just say that during distance learning, I definitely had a lot more time both to myself and to like practice, just bettering my mental health. And also I had time for a job. So I actually got a job during distance learning. So I had more time for that. And a lot of the extracurriculars I was a part of, a lot of, educators and even students were able to be so creative in like a digital platform. So that was just one thing that really, really surprised me. And I'm really happy about that. And so just also to add on, it's really cool to see that some teachers are also still utilizing some of that into like in-person learning now. So it's really nice.
I can definitely agree with the time aspect of it. I feel like having the time for like self-care is really important. And on top of that, I had so much time that I could like join a ton of extracurriculars that I never would have looked into. Outside of the time aspect, I feel like it was a lot, or at least in my school, it was a lot less busy work, and everything that was assigned was like pretty organized and due at midnight that night. And they didn't really have the time during the class period to like assign something to turn in at the end. It was just I think the workload was a lot less.
For those of you who are returning to school in person, and that's everybody, how do you feel about going back to the classroom?
Okay, I was really excited to go back to school because I really miss socializing with everybody and not just like on a computer or screen. So I was really excited and also a little nervous also for my safety, but more because when the pandemic started, I was an 8th grader in middle school and now I'm in my 2nd year of high school. So it was just a little scary, but yeah, I was mostly excited.
I'm excited that I get to interact with people and see my friends, but I'm also kind of worried about my safety. I might get sick, so that's why I'm concerned. I'm concerned about my safety. right now.
My top two concerns for this upcoming school year, one of them is that when I went back at the end of my junior year last year, like I said, it was only like 3 other kids with me. We were all socially distanced. And when you were walking through the halls, barely anyone would be there. And then in this last week I've been in class, it's just been like, whoa, like I forgot all these kids go here. You know, you go into the hall and you're like struggling not to get bumped into, or there's only one entrance to like this big building we have that has a lot of classrooms. So that's like a can of sardines, you know, you're just squished trying to get to your class. So that's a big concern, just not knowing where everyone's been, because you could be good, your friends could be good, but that kid who maybe was like washing his hands next to you in the bathroom, maybe they're not good. So that was one concern. Another one was not being like caught up to where I'm supposed to be in classes. Does that make sense? Like I go to my AP Lit class, and you know, those things I don't know, those things that I've missed. And I know schools are being very lenient with that right now. They're like trying to be understanding. But still, if it doesn't meet like the AP standards, it doesn't matter how like understanding the school is, when the whole construct of it all still is like I'm behind.
I have a different concern. I think staying energized will definitely be pretty hard because in comparison to online school, going back to regular, I haven't started yet. I think a few of you have, but going back to regular, like waking up in the morning, getting ready, going to school, clubs, homework, sports, whatever else you have going on after school, I'm definitely concerned I won't be able to balance it all as well as I used to, or just manage my time as well as I used to. And another concern would be COVID, getting it and it spreading. And if we had to go back to online school after getting like a taste of regular life again, I don't know how I'd do a whole other year. So that's another major concern of mine.
So my next question is, raise your hand if you have had a Black or African American educator at any point in your school experience. Okay. See everyone besides prayer. Okay, so you can put your hands down. Thank you. Raise your hand if you have had a Latino or Latinx educator while in high school. What's your experience like with your Black or Latinx or Latino educator?
I know for me, most of my teachers and educators are at my school are Black and brown. And so I always feel welcome, and I always feel that the teachers are understanding. And they also serve as role models, because a lot of the teachers at my school, they also went to the same high school as me. They went to college and then they came back to serve. And that's how they serve as role models. And they're very understanding. They've lived in the community where I live, and they know what responsibilities many students hold.
There was these 2 Black educators on campus, both female, and I've never had their class, but we are on first name basis. So even though I've never sat down in the class, they've never taught me anything, you know, from a textbook, I still have such a strong connection with both of them because they look like me, and they're just like, they treat me like with respect, which most teachers do, but it's just that fulfillingness of being able to see myself in them. I think they see themselves in me. So just being able to form that connection.
My next question is, what do you think you need from your parents or guardians in order to be successful this year? How can they support you?
I know one thing that I'm going to need from my parents and guardians this year is patience, because this last year has just been so, I would say, like hard, and so like it was hard to be motivated And so now that we're like back in person and the days are really long, I just need patience from them so that I won't get stressed out and so that I could keep myself in check. And yeah.
I definitely need my parents to keep pushing me. They've been doing that my entire life, but I feel like especially going into my junior year, I'd say like this is notably like one of the most important years that will like affect my future a lot. So I feel like they just need to keep pushing there, but not too much, obviously, and just being there for me and just being someone I can talk to if there's like nobody else. And yeah, overall, just being like a good support system for me.
What do you think you all need from your teachers, administrators, counselors in order to be successful this year? And how can they support you?
Personally, for me, I think that's more of, because I'm a senior, college readiness is a big thing right now. I know we're supposed to get that a lot in junior year. That's when like our school would host college tours and everything, and I just missed out on that. So just more college readiness for the senior class and junior class, definitely.
I would say that teachers should be more understanding because a lot of people now over like since the pandemic have more responsibilities, and so they can't really do the same work as before, or at least they can, but on their own time. So I think teachers should also like understand and support students in any way that they can so that the student can thrive.
I think opportunities like this, like even just like more opportunities for staff or students for us to be able to think of like spaces like this for us to be able to talk about like what it is that we're going through, even if it's just like occasional, what it can be by term or whatever it is, just occasionally just being able to check in on students. I think it's really, really powerful. And I think it honestly, for me, it motivates me a lot to be able to just actually just sit down and think about where I am, what I want for the future, and what can change. So more opportunities like this.
I also think something that should like change or become more common is talk about mental health and just conversations regarding that, because I feel like it wasn't even a topic of like conversation or something you even brought up until quarantine and like that entire year. So I feel like in an in-person setting, having those talks and conversations and not making it awkward and not making it something that anybody should be ashamed of is really important.
Absolutely. All, I think, really important things for folks to hear. And we really appreciate you all for saying yes to this opportunity, for allowing us to listen to your perspectives and your thoughts. And Prayer, to your point, I hope that we can do this more often, hear from students, because this whole thing centers around you all. So it's really important that your voices are amplified. So thank you, and good night.
Thank you, students, for a thought-provoking discussion. And thank you to our moderators, Ebony and Jaleesa, and thank you to our audience for your patience. These students have brought forth quite a bit for our next panel to discuss. You'll hear from a group that represents parents and caregivers, students, policymakers, and educators. During the conversation, we invite you to comment and share your thoughts. If you have questions that you want to pose, please share those in the chat on YouTube and on Facebook. Our moderator for the evening will be Ms. Regina Brown-Wilson. Regina Brown-Wilson is the Executive Director of California Black Media, a nonprofit that advocates for Black-owned media outlets that work to preserve Black-owned media. Wilson has a long track record of ensuring that Black viewpoints remain central to all debates that shape public policy in California by using journalism and new revenue models to sustain the industry. In 2007, Wilson was appointed by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger to the Secretary of Education's communications team and held several posts in the administration. Wilson currently is a board commissioner for California's 2020 census. Before her work in government, Wilson co-founded BPC Media Works, LLC, a media relations firm that managed the Black Voice News, a weekly newspaper, and handled government affairs for Black-owned media outlets throughout California. Wilson is a graduate of Wilberforce University and holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in communication. Join me in welcoming Miss Regina Brown.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Dr. McGowan-Robinson. I'm looking forward to this lively conversation today, centering the needs of Black and Brown public school students as we enter into the school year filled with so much uncertainty. As we've heard from the previous comments from our previous panel and their experiences, we understand that COVID-19 has only deepened the inequities that already existed in our public schools. But with those inequities, there's an opportunity for our schools to not just return to school as it was, but to start anew. One thing we know for sure, as Dr. Bishop said, who's a dear friend of mine, returning to what was will continue to leave Black and Brown children behind. Parents of color deserve perspectives on virtual, or have diverse perspectives on virtual learning and how we return to school. As you know, they're not a monolith. We just heard from students who shared their challenges with distance learning, but also shared some positive experience with distance learning. What can we take away from the last year and a half of distance learning to build on, or what we need to let go? I myself I was a second grade teacher last year. I had no idea I could do it, but I did. We successfully finished the second grade for my son. Today, we have a full panel with a wide array of perspectives. And today you'll hear from parents, students, educators, and an epidemiologist on their thoughts on how we should move forward. So to kick us off, I will introduce our panelists. We first have Kimberly I don't want to say her name wrong, so sorry. Wenceslo, who's a student from Yale University, which I think is like such a big deal. Alfonso Paz, who is the executive director of Pazlo Education Foundation. David Hardeen, executive director of Aram Prep. Ilsa Gonzalez Soto, a 6-year educator and teacher coach for Teach America. Alberta Brinson Moore, parent of a high school student and co-chair of Community Response System of South Los Angeles. Dalia Velasco, parent and community organizer, for Parent Revolution. And Paula Amazola, who's a parent career advisor and trustee for the Culver City Unified School District. But I want to make sure everybody knows that views that she's expressing tonight are views of her own, and that they shouldn't be attributed to anything she does in her professional position. So anyway, that's our group of who we're going to be talking to tonight, and I hope to be able to shepherd us through this conversation. So we just heard directly from students across the state expressing their education experiences over 2020 and 2021 school year. And so often, as you all know, that adults have these conversations about students, what they need, and we often have these conversations without the student's voice. So we want to make sure that tonight is kind of centered on what the students have given us in terms of clear direction of how we support them. And I would like to hear from each one of the panelists one sentence or more or less that resonates with you most from what you heard tonight from the students. And so I think, Mr. Hardeen, I'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. There were so many powerful nuggets of gold that were shared in the student panel. The things that particularly stood out to me were comments like, the teachers that I have I can see myself in them and they can see themselves in me. We need patience. We need understanding. And what I'm hearing when I hear those sorts of things aren't anything technical in nature. They're values. They're values that we adhere to. And I think more than anything, this just makes me think about how do we work as a school, and how do we work with our educators on what it is that we're valuing in this time with so many competing priorities.
Great. Mr. Paz, can you tell us, in a sentence, what you felt, what your reactions from what the students said?
Well, what I loved more than anything is they were talking about mental health and having kids talk. I say that if you're quiet long enough, a student will speak. If you're quiet a little longer, they'll tell you how to help them. The key is student agency. And I just love the fact that these kids want to talk. And one of the things that we put forth at our schools is whenever a kid's in crisis, whether it be academic, social, emotional, our first question is, who do you want here with you? And it's amazing when you can give a kid that level of agency. Like, this adult gets me. At one of my schools, it's the cafeteria manager, and he comes in. And when he walks in, the kid self-regulates, kid just breathes. We have to create a safe space that becomes a brave space. And if we allow kids to pick which adult is in that room, they speak. And I think you heard that in the panel. They want to talk, and they know who to talk. So allow them to pick that adult. I just think mental health is just brilliant that they all brought that up. Thank you.
Great. No, thank you. Miss Brinson, more. You're on mute.
I'm
Don't
muted.
worry, we're on mute.
The students mentioned how much time they had. And that was something I noticed with my son, because he was able to take 2 community college classes each semester, in addition to participating in a lot of the things he loved. The thing he missed most, like the kid says, was their friends, socializing. And that's the only reason we are going back, is because he missed socializing. And those
I would tell you right now, I kind of feel the same way you feel. I feel like my only reason my kids are back is because they missed the socializing. We were doing fine on the academics, I think. And other than me not necessarily really being a trained teacher, but that's a whole nother story. Ms. Velasquez, did I have her? Or Ms. Gonzalez, let's go ahead and go with you. Let's kick it to you.
Yes, so going along with what you were saying, where you were both were sharing about socializing, I think what really spoke to me from the student conversation is this idea of like school is the community, right? It's not just about like what we're learning subject matter wise, but really like for it to be a place of care, and for teachers and staff to notice that like above all, like our students are people. They're little people, but they're still people that have so many different things going on, and centering that instead of just like, what are we going to learn today?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And Ms. Velasco, your thoughts?
Thank you. I think I heard 2 things that really stood out to me. One of them, I think Ariana shared, where she talked about feeling like schools had lenient standards, but the overall system and expectation of her hasn't changed, right? And that worry that she's feeling. I think I've heard that a lot from the parents that I work with, but to hear that from her as well just goes to show you like that frustration and inner turmoil that I think a lot of students are feeling about, like, where am I? Am I up to speed on where I need to be? And how am I gonna, make sure I'm ready for college or whatever their next step is once they leave school? And I think second, hearing Prayer mention that, there needs to be more mental health check-ins. And I think that's also really important. There's a lot of trauma that has happened throughout the last year and a half for everyone. And I think there's going to be a big need for healing, really, not just check-ins, but also like that next step of providing spaces of healing for students, but families as well, because it's been a crazy, hectic year for everyone. And I think it's a really great opportunity to come together as a school community and provide that space of healing for them.
Great. Oh my gosh, great insight. Thank you so much for what you gathered. Ms. Amazola.
Hi, yes, I wanted to first say thank you to the students for being so candid and sharing, their personal story. And I think what I took from this is that it's not normal to go back to school in a pandemic. We're all the first to do this, right? in every aspect, parents, teachers, students. And so it's not normal, and we're doing our best. And with this three things that came out, I'm just thinking about what they said is like, students want to achieve because the systems around them haven't changed. They still need to take AP tests. They still need to go to college. And so, that they still want to achieve. Second, they have more responsibilities because the pandemic is hard, right? So they have to make sure that they pack their mask. They have to make sure, that they're, signing in if they're doing extracurricular activities so that they can do their checks, their tracing checks. And in addition to that, right, we have to keep at the forefront, right, public health, right, mental health, and wellness at the forefront. And they are thinking about this, right? This is their safety. They're feeling like they're not safe to go back. And I think that what this tells me is that we don't need a new normal. This is not a new normal. And what we need to do is to reimagine education and how that system looks, and then collaborate throughout the different systems that have to collaborate with each other, right? Just because we need to, because we're humans and we are in the business of creating more beautiful and rich, genius humans so that they can go and they can thrive in their communities. And so that's my take.
No, that's great. And I know that we have our student from Yale, Miss Winceslow. Does you want to give us your thought? I mean, you're a student yourself, but you're undergrad at Yale. What was your takeaway? I know it's a different challenge for you.
Right. Yeah, no, I think what resonated with me, much like the other panelists, really just echoing off of what everyone has said, was the importance, I think, of having educators of color and educators who can understand where students are coming from. I know not to insert myself, but I came from a low income district with almost solely educators of color, and it was beautiful to just be surrounded in a district of like people who, if I had a bad day, they kind of knew what was going on at home. And this is only exacerbated with the pandemic because of all the struggles that all these students have to go through. And like, for me, obviously going to a PWI, primarily white institution like Yale, like that was a big jump, because suddenly I had educators who had no idea what I was going through back home and could not really relate to me. And I know that was very, very hard for me to make that jump. So in a lot of ways, this conversation to this switch to COVID, I think, has just at the forefront of what I'm thinking is having more educators of color, and those educators who are not of color, what can they do? What can we all do as a district to help in this instance of compassion, extending this compassion to help and support students best we can, because we don't know the law. I mean, I think all of us here have suffered so much in the past year, so much loss, so much confusion. So to have educators who can help level to some extent, I think is key. Yeah, that's all
You know what? I want to keep on with you, because you're going to get thrown to the next topic, since we're going to switch kind of gears and talk about health and safety, especially for our students. So students' mental health, as you heard, and safety from the virus is among top concerns of students' return to school. We heard this directly from one of our students during the listening session. Like many adults, students have directly or indirectly experienced some type of trauma, grief, or loss. Some have lost loved ones, grandparents, parents, close relatives, not to mention, as we all know, the lack of social interaction, isolation that some have experienced. And we also heard students talk about the anxiety that they're experiencing being in a close contact with students and fear of transmission of the virus. And so I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but I always kind of look and I'm like, okay, wait, do you have it? Do you have your mask on or what have you? So as our student panelists, and a recent public school graduate, based on your experience and some of the shared experience of your peers, what do you think the priority should be when it comes to supporting students' needs in returning to the school environment?
I think other than obviously prioritizing just the logistics of it. Students' health should always be at the forefront. If we feel, and this is me speaking, I have a little sister who's currently in public school right now, and they just opened, and there's already been an outbreak, and that's so scary to us as a family. With an my mother's immunocompromised, she just is in remission with cancer, and it's like I think a big job that educators and school administrators have right now is to be able to make decisions that center the health of the students, despite how messy things might get. Because at the end of the day, we want what we all want as a district, as a community, is to whatever students might need. And if that means some hybrid, then it's going to be hard, but we need to be looking for other options and constantly just changing the game, rather than, I think, becoming cemented and this is what we're going to do this semester. But that's also so many setbacks, right? With that, you as educators, of course, are experts in this, and can speak more on this. Like it's obviously so much of a burden, both financial, logistically, everything, to make sure that happens. But yeah, I think just keeping in mind putting students' needs at the forefront.
No, you raise a great point. And Ms. Velasquez, what resources, do you, as a parent, need from the school and the community to support your children?
Yeah, so I myself am not a parent. However, in my role at Parent Evolution, I work with like dozens of parents very closely, but hundreds of parents in different capacities. And I think similar to what Kimberly was saying, I think that confidence in knowing that their children are safe at school, that the protocols that they're being told about are actually being followed, and that they have that confidence in knowing like my student is safe and that my school is doing everything that they can. And also that trust to know, like, if something does happen, like they're going to communicate with me so I can take proper steps. And I think to even go beyond that, also knowing like the steps of what happens if my child is exposed, both health-wise, but also even academically. Like, if my child's going to not learn for a week, what's going to happen after that? And I think second is to kind of go back to some of the other things that were mentioned before, is that confidence in parents specifically in being able to be a part of the team, just like they were for the last year and a half, right? So many parents, and even you mentioned, you were a co-teacher, right? Like you were there with your student, and you have so much insight. Parents have so much insight and knowledge to give about their student to a teacher that probably hasn't met the student before. And, the way things were recorded and data and all of that was different during the pandemic. So I think really respecting the insight that families and parents have to play, or give, better said, is really important as well.
Great. Miss Amazola, you wear two hats, a school board member and an epidemiologist. As we have returned to school districts across the state, parents and students are rightly concerned about their safety as we see cases rise with the Delta variant. What advice would you provide to parents and school leaders when it comes to mental and physical health and safety for students upon their return to school? And what resources would you suggest they tap into?
Well, that is a long question. So I'm first going to say that we are in a different place than we were 15 months ago. 15 months ago, we had no idea how this virus was transmitted. We now know so much more. We have 15 months of research. So I really want to, putting on my public health hat here and saying, like, please, 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 like, wear your mask. They really, really do work. A 3-layer cloth to, the surgical, just wear a mask. And if you feel more comfortable wearing two, then wear two. And if you're around a crowded area outside, then wear a mask. So I really encourage people to wear a mask, number one. Number two, most schools are implementing testing. Do the testing. It is difficult for the schools, I believe, to require the testing of students, but test so that this is called surveillance. In the United States, we do surveillance for STDs, HIV. So this is something this is how we can monitor the disease. schools can implement symptom checks, right? Are students coming in ill or not? And then the most important mitigation that we have, that we really, I really want to, encourage everyone listening to this, is get vaccinated if you're not vaccinated. In Culver City, our community, 12 and over, we're at 87% vaccinated. So our students who are going to, and this is the same percentage for youth, 12 to 17. So those youth that are going to campus know that 87% of them that are the ages of 12 to 17 are vaccinated. Now we have babies that can't get vaccinated because they're under 12. And so what I really recommend is for parents to have these conversations, because parents are the first teachers. They're 365 teaching our children, right? How to stay safe. And so teaching your children to keep their mask on, and making sure that if there is like social, physical distancing, that they maintain that. And what can parents do? Well, stay informed. Get on the LA County Health Department or the state health department or your county health department listserv, so that you can have this information readily available for you. And if you have doubts that the protocols are being followed, that the right protocols for your school are in place, then please reach out to your principal, reach out to the counselors, reach out to your teacher, your nurses at the schools, and ask these questions. What are the protocols? I get, as a trustee, I get questions all the time, and sometimes I can answer them and sometimes I defer and I say, hey, Nurse Sandy, can you please answer this question? And so, our health is so important, and we cannot just worry about it. We have to be proactive and ask those questions, and making sure that our schools are doing this layer approach of applying this mitigation, these different mitigations that we have. So I think I covered everything.
No, I think you did. I think you gave really good, solid advice. And Mr. Hardin, I would like to switch to you, because we had the doctor speak to us. Now we have you, who has to implement this on the ground, and what that looks like at the schools that that you serve.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly no easy endeavor, on top of all the complexities of running a school, and yet of great import nonetheless. I'll say this. I think this year has redefined how we think about health. And so health in terms of the protocols and the systems that you have in place, I think number one is strong communication with families. You have to have a strong pathway for communication, so that families know how to do COVID safety checks, know what the symptoms are, and are able to accurately identify that before students are entering the building. I think secondly, then it's the process of having temperature checks, students getting hand sanitizer upon entry, maintaining distance where possible, mask on, as was mentioned. One of the things that we've done, I think that was very important and critical this year, is we bought air purifiers, industrial air purifiers for every room. And it cleanses the air to within 99.6 of the viral load every 30 minutes. And so that's another safety precaution. We have that in every room that children are in, so that we have fresh air that's constantly cycled throughout. The other thing that I would say is rapid testing when there are questions. Within 15 to 30 minutes, we can find out to make sure that students are safe, because that's another huge concern. And then the other side of this is mental health, right? And we know that mental health doesn't just stop with a student who has an IEP, and mental health doesn't just stop if a student is on Medicare. And so what we've done this year is significantly increased our community relationships and our investment in mental health counseling, so that any student that we're seeing exhibit signs of trauma and any student that our advisors work with, that we know have situations, has access to that through the school. And the last thing I'll say is having strong relationships with students. So we significantly invest in social emotional learning through our advisory program. Every student at our school has a strong relationship with a caring adult who is personally vested in their success and in their health and well-being. And I think when you put multiple things together, that's a solution for overall health and sustainability.
No, I think that that's great. You know, it makes me want to transition, you know, to our next topic. While data around disproportionate suspensions and expulsions of Black and Brown students in schools to prison pipeline is not new, the killing of George Floyd and another unarmed Black men heightened the awareness of systemic racism and race-based discrimination globally. The U.S. public education system was not exempt from increased scrutiny, as you all know. In a Speak Up survey conducted a few months ago, they found that Black parents cited concerns about their children falling behind academically due to not being in school. Among a long list of other potential concerns, academic concerns rise to the top. Before the pandemic, the number of Black families homeschooling rose swiftly, doubling between 2003 and 2018. Then from spring to fall of last year, the proportion of Black homeschoolers increased almost fivefold to 16.1%, according to the Census Bureau data. In that survey, while not representative of all families and Black families at LAUSD, many of those families cited anti-Black racism in schools as a reason for the switch. Yet, numerous studies have shown Black students are more likely to be disciplined and more harshly for lesser offenses than their white peers. As we think about what we've seen in the past, particularly when it comes to disproportionately of suspension of Black students, we have the opportunity to chart a new course in the future, particularly for Black students. How should we be reimagining discipline in our schools? And Ms. Moore, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off to you as a parent and get your thoughts.
I think the community really needs to be involved. The community has to hold the schools accountable. Families have to hold schools accountable. So involvement with families and the community is pivotal. Understanding alternatives to suspension and discipline is vital. I think with the Black Achievement Plan, there is going to be resources available for the schools to utilize alternative methods to some of the disciplinary practices of the past. But community engagement is vital.
And Ms. Soto, your thoughts on that same very topic?
I have so many thoughts on it. We could keep talking forever, but just keeping it brief and really thinking to the core of it. Like, our schools are a reflection of our society. So if we have these issues that are happening right around racism and inequity that are rampant in society, especially with the killing of George Floyd and all of the different uprisings that happened as a result, thinking in terms of discipline, we really have to change our thinking in our schools from policing and punishment to addressing student needs and forming a community of care, like what Ms. Alberta is speaking to, right? We're a community, and in here we really need to talk about what's really going on and what are the root causes and addressing those. And it really comes down to the relationships we have with students. So I know for me as a teacher, it was about when there were behaviors in my classroom, like talking to individual students versus just making assumptions. And because when we make assumptions, we don't really know what's happening, and then we're not addressing needs behind the behavior. So being trauma informed, right? And just knowing who our particular students are, like where they come from, like their beliefs, and hearing from them, and communication is key, and like love and grace. I think we really need that in discipline.
Yeah. Mr. Paz, as a school leader, what approach are you taking to address discipline in your school?
So interesting, our schools were founded with no dean on purpose. The intention was to build on what Ms. Gonzalez says, every behavior, everything, as adults, we don't discipline, we talk. And so it is understanding that anything you see, if you can get to the emotion, that's where it begins. But again, we haven't developed a system for teachers and faculty to actually sit with the emotion. The counselor-student ratio in California is 1 to 500. At our school, it's 1 to 150, plus a social worker, plus a behaviorist. So I challenge schools and I challenge parents to go to their school and look at the budget. Say, what do you have in mental health money-wise? If it's not in the budget, they're not doing it. They're doing lip service. They really are. And we have to do professional development for our teachers. The schools aren't helping them, but we can train them. So that's the biggest thing we do is we have a very dedicated training program to train every adult on campus, not just the teachers. Because again, whoever a kid has attachment to, and there's a whole attachment theory out there, you now can get the kid to talk. If you talk to therapists, they'll tell you it takes 3 to 4 visits before someone starts telling the truth. And we can't do anything till we get to the truth. And I want to end with Maya Angelou. Fear and love cannot occupy the same space at the same time. And when an adult is over a child, the child goes to fear. So how do we get the child to love? Ask the child who they want to talk to, and the child will talk. That means we have to be very flexible. In our system, we move. Kids move. Adults move. I have an office manager who will move because a young girl needs to talk to her. And in that 20 minutes that I let that happen, boom, we now know where the kid needs and we can move urgently to help the kid. So it is really reorganizing a system. If your school has deans, they still do discipline. I don't care what they say. But really look at what is the school's budget. What percentage of their budget is on mental health? And that either, the money is where the mouth, you either have it or you don't. And I do think COVID has opened that place where it's really challenging schools, and parents are challenging schools. How much money are you spending on my kid on mental health? I think a lot of parents would be shocked that it's very little.
Wow. Thank you for all those gems and nuggets you just dropped on us. I know that we're kind of running behind on time, so we're going to move over into our final topic of today, and just appreciate everybody taking the time to talk with us about this and share their expertise. And I'd like to hear from some of our panelists on the topic about accelerated learning and disrupting patterns of low expectations for students of color. Students of color are woefully underserved prior to the pandemic, and the equity gaps have only widened throughout the pandemic. Our collective commitment to be responsive to the needs of students disrupts patterns of low expectations and provide opportunities to accelerate learning are critical in creating a new paradigm in the public education. Studies have shown that students of color and all students benefit from having teachers and administrators of color. Students during the listening session talked about the need for innovative teaching practices, educators of color, and additional educational support. Mr. Harding, what role does a culturally responsive school leader play in creating a new paradigm for Black and Brown students? And specifically, what practice or policy have you adopted throughout this pandemic to disrupt the patterns of low expectations or to accelerate learning for students of color? And I know that was a mouthful.
What a question. All right. Here's the best way I can put it, because that is an infinitely complex question. The best way I can say it is this. Don't lower your expectations, raise your support. And I think that's what we've had to do over the last year. And let me give you a couple of examples of what that looks like. First and foremost, one of the things that we've done is we've adopted a push-in model for our students so that at each grade level, We have an instructional aide who's able to push in with our students and provide additional specialized academic instruction, so that students who may not be understanding or retaining the information are able to get additional personalized instruction that they wouldn't otherwise get from a caring adult. I think other things that are really critical are having aligned partners. So I mentioned our counseling agency and increasing the amount of services that we have there, but also even within our after school program. Within our after school program, we have additional mental health counseling that's offered, and they also attune to the social emotional needs. So I think having alignment from the beginning of the day throughout the end of the day is incredibly important. How you hire is everything. And so I think this is really where leaders of color come into play. Leaders of color, I think, inherently see things differently. And so what I'll say is this: at our school, you all went through the questions. At how many of you have had a Black teacher or a Latino teacher? At any single grade level in our school, all of our students would have raised their hand, because there's a Black male teacher, not just a Black teacher, a Black male teacher, which is even rarer if you understand the context of education at every single grade level. There's a educator who's Latino or Latinx at every single grade level in our school. And I think that that perspective and having conversations explicitly around race that your staff is trained on is paramount to changing the lens and ultimately what this is all about. So in a nutshell, don't lower your expectations, raise your support.
Well, can I just say, can we put that on a t-shirt? Because I think we should put it on a t-shirt and then like fund the rest of the stuff that you guys need for like school trips or something. Like perfect statement. Ms. Gonzalez-Soto, what role does a culturally responsive teacher play in creating a new paradigm for Black and Brown students? So, specifically, what practices or policies have you also adopted that can disrupt the pattern of low expectations or accelerate learning for students of color?
Okay. So what role? I would say that the biggest thing as a culturally responsive teacher for me has been that I want students to develop a love of learning above all and see themselves as belonging at school. And that school is for them. It's not this institution that you go to, and like your cultural background and your identity and different parts of you, like you have to leave at home, right? Like you can be yourself and you can be authentic to you, and learning is for you. And this curriculum that I'm teaching with isn't just something that is monolithic and just general, but specifically caters to things that like you find interesting, right? As like my student, speaking to you like if you were my student. But that's what I like to think about. So when it comes to like my classroom in the past, for me the key was really like, as a middle school science teacher, like having kids see that like there are scientists, and it's not just like this white man in a lab somewhere that is doing science, but that like just the process of asking questions and coming up with ways of testing your inferences or your ideas, like that is scientific thinking. And that science is all around us, like it's in your kitchen. And during the pandemic, I had to get really creative, right? We couldn't be in class doing like real hands-on things. So I would say like, go to your kitchen and we're going to freeze water. And then we're going to talk about like, how does energy affect like the different states of water and what's really happening on a molecular level. So really, yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry. No, I think that's awesome.
Yes. So see, and how much more meaningful is that? This reminds me of the student panel. How much more meaningful is that versus us saying there's 3 states of matter, there's solid, liquid, and gas. And then I want you to describe the arrangement for me and what are atoms. Right. And so that's what it comes down to for me, for as a culturally responsive teacher. Like, how can we instill this love of learning in kids and also have them see like they're capable and they have this capacity and full of potential, and they can, they're there and they belong.
Yeah. Well, you know what I would love? I would love for you to go ahead and YouTube that and then tell us where that YouTube link is where we can figure out how that whole ice melts and matter and all that great stuff. So
I have different models I can show you.
Okay, great. Wicked. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Well, I know that I know we're coming to a close, and I want to give everybody like a rapid fire. If whoever is not dropped off on our panel yet, if we just take about 30 seconds, I mean, really, really brief, and want to see what is the hope that you have for our public education system post-pandemic when it comes to inevitably serving Black and Brown students. Let's just rapid fire, start with you, Mr. Hardeen, and we'll just go through the boxes. 30 seconds.
I'm just going to leave you with a quote. To increase an abiding satisfaction for the mass of our people and for all people, someone must sacrifice something of their own happiness. This is a duty only to those that recognize it as a duty. It is silly to tell intelligent human beings, be good and you will be happy. The truth is today, be good, be decent, be honorable and self-sacrificing, and you will not always be happy. You may be desperately unhappy. You may even be crucified, dead, and buried. And on the third day, you'll be just as dead as the first. But with the death of your happiness may easily come increased happiness for other people. Strangers, unborn babes, uncreated worlds. If this is not sufficient incentive, never try it. Remain hogs.
Thank you for that. Deep. Mr. Paz.
The biology of the brain, doesn't matter who or what you look like on the outside, is the same. Neuroplasticity exists for all of us. We can all change. We can all become better than what we are today. Going back to Mr. Herlin, we just need the support. And so it's about support. But again, know that everyone can change. No one is stuck where they are today. That's a choice. But if we have support and love, then we change.
Ms. Moore.
We can't wait. We have to find the resources that we need now. They're available in the communities. They are available in the schools, but we have to demand them. And sometimes it's uncomfortable demanding things, but when it comes to my kids, I'm not concerned about my comfort.
Thank you. Ms. Amazola.
Yes, my hope for education is not to wait for the pandemic. I hope that we today can start changing, empowering our students to step into their genius, to their full potential. For our educators, our parents, our students, one like ask themselves, what makes me unique? What is my talent? What are those habits that I love to do? And the second thing that's most important is that we really, really need to reimagine education and think about a school, a pipeline, school to wealth, right? Like our great leaders such as Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez, they advocated for economic justice, economic equity, and we need to go there. We need to be teaching our children about financial literacy, and we need to be teaching them about how to manage their money so that they don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. And we need to level them up, and that's my hope for our children today, not post-pandemic.
All right, and the final word we'll give to you, to our young scholar from Yale.
That's so much pressure. I can't live up. But no, I think really just echoing off of what everyone has said, that everyone's so brilliant in this stream, but just understanding the other side of being an agent of change. Not only, I think, is it an honor, like earlier on, the students who were in the public school system were talking about how part of why they felt so supportive and part of what was so effective in their schooling was being able to have students, teachers who look like them, and teachers who were agents of change in their community. But I think part of that is also that the responsibility that comes with that, because not only is their responsibility to be this agent of change, but also there's responsibility to create agents, future agents of changes, and that it doesn't stop there, and it continues with your own students and that. So yeah, just very excited to see the future of education and how that continues to grow based off the gaps we've found and discovered throughout this pandemic.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for your insight and perspectives on what equitable learning environments should look like for Black and Brown students in our public schools. I would like to bring back up Dr. Laura. I think you're coming back up here, and I'm turning the stage back over to you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Regina, and thank you to all of our panelists for such a lively discussion. We've heard from students, parents, we've heard educators respond, and now we want to equip Black and Brown parents with some practical tools to use to navigate this school year. And Dr. Charles Cole, who's the CEO of Energy Converters, will share some key questions that every Black and Brown parent needs to ask their child's teacher and school. Dr. Charles Cole III is an educator focused on the advancement of all youth of color, but more specifically Black males. The passion comes from his own experiences growing up without proper support. His life's goal is to better the communities he grew up in through his work. Through Energy Converters, he's able to help students activate their leadership by building and supporting students to realize their agency and improve systems in which they most impact. Charles has served as a social worker, director for Teach for America, the vice chair of California Young Democrats, Black Caucus, and a director's level at various youth-focused nonprofits. He's a national speaker, a writer, and can be found in Oakland and around the country doing his thing, working with youth on how to equip themselves appropriately to lay the groundwork for a bright future. Charles was a community engagement specialist for the Oakland Unified School District before leaving to launch Energy Converters. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Charles Cole.
Hey, y'all. How people doing? I hope everybody's okay. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I need you all's energy, so I'm gonna be looking at these comments. Definitely get these comments in this thing, man. And it's been really dope. Love hearing from the young people. David, that was a hell of a quote to end on. I'm blessed for it. If we can get the screen up, that'll be great. I want to make sure you all can see the screen. Let me go ahead and get a thumbs up from folks, because I won't be able to see. I only got one screen. So, but what I want to talk about are the questions that every Black and Brown parent needs to ask their child, school, and teacher. And here's the thing: in a perfect society, in a perfect world, you ain't got to do all that, right? You can just send your kids to school and they get what they need. They got all the services that the last panel was talking about that they had or whatnot. But that's not always the facts. That's not always how that goes. And we just did a report at Energy Converters that talks about that. In 2019 and 20, Oakland has 745 Black seniors. And of that group, right, only 35% of that group graduated eligible for UC or CSUs in California. And we had of Latinx students, 1,910, and only 47% of those kids graduated ready, even though you'll see stories that say graduation rates are higher or this is the highest we've ever done with Black kids. It's just not okay. So if you got a school that's handling their business and you can trust them, you are blessed. Thank whatever you pray to or whatever you believe in. But I believe in this other thing, and I believe in this thing called agency. And I want to just really help people understand what agency is before we even move forward to these questions. It's the ability for people to be able to ask individual questions so they can be so they can act independently and make their own free choices, right? So when we talk about academic agency, that's the ability of students and their parents or their community or whatnot to exercise choices over their academic experiences. This is important because oftentimes Black and Brown kids are left to their own devices. I was one of those students. I was left to my own devices. And I only got to college because I went and badgered my my counselor. I sat in her office. I was threatened to get suspended and all that stuff, but I didn't care because I wanted to go to college. And I knew how to advocate for myself. So I'm going to help you all build some agency. There's a bunch of different questions that you could ask, but we're going to start with just these 5, okay? Get your pen ready, and the way that they cut this up, you'll be able to come back and watch this again. But the first one is, what's my child's reading level? This is just really important because so many kids are multiple years behind in reading level. When we talk about literacy, literacy isn't just the ability to be able to read and write, right? It is the ability to be able to process and analyze and do something with what you read and write. So many people don't know, like really think about it at home. Do you know what grade level your kid is reading on? Once you get that answer, that empowers you to go do some other things. If your child is in the 6th grade, but they read on the 3rd grade level, well, that allows you to go out and get books that's on the 3rd grade level, 4th grade level, 5th grade level, 6th grade level. You understand what I'm saying? So, and also when you ask these type of questions, educators and schools respond to you differently. So let's just start with that piece. Dr. Howard Fuller loves to say this. He's a mentor of mine and a bunch of people that's on this in this presentation. He said, we fought so hard to be able to sit at the counter, but now we at the counter and we can't read the damn menu. All right. 2, can we set up a regular time to meet? Check this out, man. You got my kid. You got what I'm saying? Like, I need you to understand their question. I want you to know, do you know what my kid loves? Do you know what my kid dreams about? Do you see my kid as a human, as a person? Are these things that you are very comfortable with? Do you have questions for me? We are a team in this. You know what I mean? Like, I may get the kid dressed, fed, and all that stuff, man, but I need you to deliver. So we need to be in constant communication. Hopefully we got a good relationship. So maybe if my child had an interesting day at home and we had a fight before he got to school, I can send you a message I can send that educator a message saying, hey, look out for little Charles having X, Y, and Z issues today. And we can have a plan as opposed to that black kid getting kicked out of class and suspended, which leads to some other stuff that I won't go into because we got limited time. The third, I alluded to this just recently, but again, I am always coaching parents and students to ask their educators what they see in their student or what they see in them. Like, what do you see that I'm capable of? Like, are you paying attention to me on a human level? And this is just a really good conversation to engage with. And I want to know how you all are feeling about these questions. I know I'm going quickly, but I'm trying to help them. You know, I want to help us get some time back. But let me know how you're feeling about this. And if you have asked your teacher, you know, what they saw in your kid, tell me what they said. I would venture to say that a lot of people haven't asked that question. And I talked to a lot of educators across the country and I asked them. And 1, a lot of them haven't been asked that question. But 2, when I asked them that in their training, they were really reflective because they couldn't answer that question for more than half of their kids. And that's a problem. And then this is really, really important. Language matters. And it's not fair, but everybody has their biases. Sometimes teachers might write you off because maybe you don't speak like them. I don't know, for whatever reason. It's not my job to speculate. But when you use certain language, like teachers have goals, right? Like there should be a plan and goals and sections and all that stuff. So when you ask that educator, hey, what's the goal for this month? What's the goal for this semester? What's the goal for this section? It lets them know that somebody's going to be paying attention to that. Somebody's going to be following up around that goal. And you're going to have some very specific questions in regards to your child. And you're going to be able to hold your child accountable in a certain type of way. And then finally, what's your discipline policy? Listen, man, when a black or brown male gets arrested, when a black or brown male gets suspended multiple times in a year, the chances of them going to jail at some point in their life grows exponentially. As a black man who is one of the first in his family to go to college, but has a lot of the men in my family have been to jail. This is a real issue, especially in black and brown communities. And it's not just with males, it's also with women as well. And so you need to get a real understanding. What's the progressive plan? Like, do they have a plan? Is it just how you feeling that day? Or is there like, give me the steps. So if my child does get in trouble, and for some reason you didn't talk to me before we got to the stage of heightened discipline or suspension, we can walk through the steps together and kind of talk about what happened. Now, you can find a lot of this there. I wrote this article. It's in Ebony. It's in a few other places. I'll make sure you all get the link so they can have it. But let's just start with this. And this is the way that we can start a thriving relationship between teacher and family. And here's the thing. And I'm talking to the parents. I have a whole different thing that I say to educators. For instance, I coach educators that their first call home should not be negative. Their first call home should be telling you what they see in your kid. They should preempt this, right? But as a parent, it's nice to be liked. It is nice to have a good, friendly relationship with your educator. It's nice to be able to just trust them. But we're talking about your baby. We're talking about your child. And you and that child have to deal with the consequences of whatever is happening in that classroom. And I would strongly advise you to not leave that up to chance, especially in this country, in this education system, and in a place that has the type of statistics around Black and brown children that it does. Okay. So here's a recap. 1, my child's reading level. 2, check-ins, baby. You gonna be hearing from me. And here go my numbers. Here go my email address. Here go my social media if you want it. I probably wouldn't give them the social media, but here are all the ways that you can contact me. And now give me the ways I can contact you. And let's talk about my kid. 3, what do you see in my child? It's very, very, very important, man. Again, and if somebody just don't have an answer for that and you check back in on that second meeting, they still don't have an answer, then I think you got a bigger issue. I would be trying to get my kid in different classes if that's the case. What's the goal for this month? Again, if you don't get a satisfactory answer for number 4, your next call needs to be to a principal. It needs to be to an official that's above that person, because somebody is dropping the ball somewhere. And then finally, what is your discipline policy? I am so glad to have been able to be here. Here's my information. Let's be friends. I am giving you my number. This is my cell phone number, like my actual cell phone, the one that's in my pocket. That's my personal iPhone number. You can have that, website stuff, and then my social media. I am so grateful and grateful to DIL around this. And I hope you all continue the good work. And thank you very much. Let's stop this because I know that looks crazy. Let's stop sharing. So with that being said, there was a nice little script that they had that they wanted me to say. I have to look at notes because we have a banner thing. But I have a colleague that's here that I like very, very much, with an organization that I like a whole lot. I helped found it, Families in Action. We're going to hear about what you can do right now, the type of action you can take, because again, this ain't about us just getting this information and sitting on it. And we believe in agency. We believe in being the drivers of our lives. And we believe that when it's your child, when it's your baby that we're talking about, we can talk about what's good for everybody else. But it's different when we're talking about your baby, and we want you to have some tools in your toolkit. So with no further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend, to my colleague, and just to an amazing advocate and leader, Miss Maria Flores.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cole. And it's an honor. I don't know about you guys. I'm fired up. And all your advocacy tools I'm ready to use. But first of all, good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Flores, Director of Organizing for Families in Action. Whoa, I don't know about you guys, but Dr. Cole just equipped us with some critical advocacy tools that we as parent, guardian, mentors, and community leaders should leverage as we support students of color across the state and in the return to the classroom. Tonight, we want to call on all of you to join the Charting the Course to Equity Coalition in signing a petition to urge California legislators to invest in all educators of colors, including principals and administrators. Here's why this petition is important. Currently in the state of California has committed to an investment of $1 billion to support the recruitment and the retention of teachers of color. The investment is both historic and necessary, but it's unclear whether or not the investment will also support the recruitment and retention of principals and administrators of color. Why does this nuance matter, and why is it important to include both teachers of color and leaders of color in this initiative? It's because emerging research. So we've done our research, and this is what we found. Research shows that all students, in particular students of color, have better outcomes when they attend schools where principals and administrators of color are well represented. And then the data shows three things. Students at schools with leader of color score significantly higher on state tests, especially at high schools. 12th grade students at schools with leader of color graduate significantly more prepared for college and career. And students, especially African American students, and high school students with a leader of color are significantly less likely to be suspended. Not only that, but our student panelists, our amazing student panelists, gave powerful testimonies about the important role and positive impact of leader of color. And in light of this, we believe that principals and administrators of color must be an intentional part of the state's agenda, and that they invest the money in them. So we ask you right now tonight to join us in signing the petition. If you guys can see, there's links dropped in the chat box for YouTube and Facebook. We want to encourage you to share this with your network, to share this with your school community, and our goal is 1,000 signatures, and I know we can get there. It's easy. It takes 10 seconds. This is our call to action to you. So if you're with us, I'm watching the comments. Please type yes. I'll sign the petition. Type yes. I want to see those comments coming in, and I'll give you guys a couple seconds so that you guys are able to click in there, register, sign up. It takes less than 10 seconds, and this will go out to the California legislators to let them know that we need them to invest in not only our teachers, but our administrators and principals of color. Thank you, y'all. I see all those yes coming in. Thank you, Yasmin. We see you. Please continue to drop the yeses. And we want to thank you. Thank you for supporting this effort. When you're done typing yes in the chat, don't forget to click on the link and sign. Like I said, it takes less than 10 seconds. Thank you again for your time. I see those yeses coming in. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for your time. Now I want to turn it over to Laura, Dr. Laura, so she could give some closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much. And I am just coming off a massive high listening to Dr. Charles Cole, empowering us with tools, and then Maria actually providing some actions for us to get engaged in immediately. For parents and guardians in the audience, we will be providing you with a toolkit in Spanish and English. If you registered, we will be emailing that out, filled with resources for you to take along with you virtually. This toolkit includes resources from Dr. Cole's presentation, as well as resources to navigate the distance learning environment, student health rights, student disability rights, bullying and harassment, and how to file complaints if your needs aren't being met. A special thank you to My School, My Rights campaign and the ACLU of California and their partners for these resources. If you're registered again for this event, you will receive the toolkit and a link to the broadcast in English and with Spanish subtitles by tomorrow. Thank you to our audience for your engagement this evening. I hope that you are leaving feeling informed, energized, and equipped with the tools you need to make this a successful school year. I'd like to send a special thank you to the Charting the Course to Equity Coalition and all of the participants in the town hall. To stay in the loop about the work of DLI and the coalition, follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, or you can always visit our website at diversityinleadership.org. Have a great evening, stay safe, and keep fighting for the schools that we deserve. Have a great evening, everyone.